My name is Jim Fox. Here is my question. You mentioned that during the course of a narrative, the protagonist's object of desire might change. What started out as a subconscious object of desire might become the object of desire. And my question is, later in the narrative, could that shift again? Could there yet another subconscious desire come to the surface? And how often during a script could that change without risking confusion or risking the audience would lose interest because the character would be so fluctuating?
Well, in the example that you gave, the object of desire did not change. It just went from being subconscious to conscious. And so it's the same object of desire. For example, in that the film I mentioned, Rocky. Consciously, Rocky thinks he's going to take this fight with the champ and try to win to become himself a heavyweight champion of the world. But subconsciously, what he really wants is self-respect. And so at the second act climax, his subconscious desire becomes conscious, and he decides to fight to go the distance to be the only guy that Apollo Creed never knocked out. He'll lose, but he'll have self-respect. And so his unconscious desire became conscious. It didn't change. It just moved up a level. On the other hand, the second example that you're suggesting is, could you have a character who throughout a story is driven toward an object of desire, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and then radically actually change the nature of that subconscious or conscious desire to something entirely different? The answer to the question, of course, would be yes, you could do that. Because as an artist, you're free to do that, and do that as many times as you wish. The question is not, could you do it, but why would you do it? Why would you risk confusing an audience about a character who seems deeply to want one thing for an hour, and then suddenly the whole story changes and he or she really wants something entirely different for the second hour of the story? Why would you risk that confusion? If the answer to the question why is a good one, let me give you an example. There's a film called Something Wild. It starts out what looks like a screwball comedy. The protagonist gets involved with Melanie Griffith, I think it is, and she's this wild girl, and they flirt, and they get up to a motel, and they're having it on, and they have a great time, and it's funny, and it's a crazy kind of romance. And then she says to him about halfway through the movie, she says, you know, my high school reunion in Pennsylvania is this weekend. You want to go? And he says, sure, great. So they go to her high school reunion, and he meets Ray Liotta, her ex-boyfriend. And Ray Liotta is a maniac. And suddenly, this screwball comedy about a guy just wanting to get laid and have some fun with his gal turns into this nightmare where he's got to survive Ray Liotta, who is a psychopath, and it gets really dark, and there's one hell of a fight at the very end, and the protagonist just manages to survive. And so in that case, he does change his object of desire. He, on the conscious level, wants to just have fun with this gal, and then the story takes a hell of a pivot, and he realizes suddenly he's got to have a new desire, which is to survive. And that movie confused a lot of people. I personally enjoyed it. I thought it was great, because I always thought that somewhere in the subtext of the Melanie Griffith character that she was up to something from the very beginning. It wasn't just a light romantic comedy. She was too crazy. It was a special kind of craziness that had a secret somewhere. And so it made sense to me ultimately, but a lot of audiences, it just didn't, and it spoiled it for them. And so the answer is yes, you could do it. You could change the object of desire in a character's life many times over if you wished, but why are you doing it? What are you trying to gain? And all the risks that you're taking. And if the answers to what you gain is greater than what you lose, you do whatever you want.